Let's Get To presents Go Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
All right, so we're back here on Go Go Astros. We have both Brian and Andy with us. Astros and Red Sox are knotted at 1. Before we jump into it, how much of Saturday's game did everyone watch? Now, I will start by saying I was at the San Angelo Revolution Film Festival, a festival that I run, and so I was able to pay as little attention as possible, only watching through the Game Day app when I absolutely had some free time. Andy, did you stick through all 27 outs?
No, absolutely not. I am on a season 7 of Psych, and after the second Grand Slam, that seemed like a better opportunity than banging my head up against a wall for the next 7 innings. So yeah, I ducked in and out and kept up with Game Day, and had the game on my phone for some part of the time, but I certainly wasn't paying attention the way I would have been with a lead, or even being within 5 runs.
Yeah. Brian, how about you?
Well, I would like to stay married. Therefore, we did not turn the game off in my living room, and got to go through this vastly sort of, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde experience of me going like, oh God, we've this is over. And my wife agonizing through every, the Red Sox fan I married, agonizing through every single out and every single, every single at bat, because, just like us, right? A 9-run lead didn't seem safe to her as much as it seemed like a disaster, and was a disaster to us.
And honestly, there was a pretty correct assumption, because the Astros did battle back, put 5 runs up, one too many grand slams. I want to talk really quickly about Nathan Eovaldi, and really just to highlight what we're talking about when we're talking about national media and how it discusses with the Astros. They're talking about his performance like he was dominant, like he was the next coming, like he was a Max Scherzer level start. And I'm like, he went 5 innings and gave up 3 runs. And if they had just like that, if you would have told me going into the game, we're going to get 3 runs off of Nathan Eovaldi in 5 innings, I would have taken it. Andy, is it just more of what we've been talking about this whole time, as far as the way the Astros are portrayed in the media?
Well, the Astros are portrayed a certain way in the media, and we've gotten that narrative from a number of people, including somehow, I forgot, Bob Ryan, who has decided that the Astros were somehow cheating by letting Odorizzi warm up for 15 minutes coming in on an injury. That was somehow malicious behavior.
Apparently a new rule in baseball that's been around, well, all our lives.
Right. It's always been, Milo reminding you, right?
Yeah.
Get as much time as you need. If it's
and I can say from afar, being a Rockets fan and growing up in the era when the Celtics were dominant, Bob Ryan's been a hack for most of his life, and nothing that happened this weekend has changed any of that. I think the other thing that you always have to consider when you're playing the Red Sox, that if Major League Baseball has a favorite team that's not the Yankees, it's really close between the Dodgers and the Red Sox. And to say that they're, openly rooting or openly campaigning for a Dodgers Red Sox World Series would be, I think it would be naive of us to not think that's one of the hoped for eventualities. Now, I think we all know that a Dodgers Astros World Series would be the highest rated World Series in the last number of years, probably back to 2017. But I think the media follows along with that. Anything the Red Sox do is going to be heroic and wonderful. Anything the Astros is going to do are going to do in this series is going to be cowardly and probably done behind the shadows with the mysterious use of math somehow, even though they're virtually the same team.
They're virtually the same team. And I think the while Astros Dodgers would be huge, I think MLB is desperately afraid that the Astros would win that series, and therefore end all of the drama. Let's talk a little bit then about Jake Odorizzi taking some time, Brian. Look, I actually wish he would have taken the full 30 minutes that he says he normally needs. We saw what he looked like when he got warm. He actually pitched very well. 1 solo home run after that beat. But are you surprised that Dusty didn't go with the guy who's used to relieving to get us out of that inning, and then let Odorizzi start a fresh inning? Was that surprising to you?
No, because at that point, what the Astros really needed is some length out of the bullpen. They needed someone who could go, in this case, 4 innings. And, it became very clear that their plan was going to be to use the back of their bullpen. So they used, again, 5 outs from Blake Taylor, who wasn't on the ALDS roster. So he's probably the last guy in their bullpen. They just needed, and they got this, they needed the back of their bullpen to perform well enough so they didn't have to use the front of their bullpen. And if there's a silver lining from game 2, that's it, is that they got to rest Presley and Graveman and Rayleigh. They pitched Stanek, but Stanek had only gone a third of the inning in game 1. So all those guys should be ready to go. And of course, the Red Sox got 2 innings from Garrett Whitlock, who I think at this point is their best reliever. So that's probably not a big deal because there's the rest day yesterday, but still is a slight advantage to the Astros in the back of the game tomorrow.
Andy, what do you think about that? I mean, would you have done, say, Blake Taylor for an inning and 2/3 going into the second, and then started Odorizzi the 4th and having him ride 4 innings? And I think that's the issue. It wasn't the using of the Odorizzi. It was just, for me, you threw him into a situation where he was completely unprepared, completely not used to doing it. Would we have been better served of flipping some of that order?
I mean, hindsight being what it is, sure. I think that you have a guy in Jake Odorizzi who is certainly capable of pitching well for extended innings. But to be fair, he hasn't relieved in a very long time in his career. He does take a starter's amount of time to get ready. And you're saying 30 minutes. I think I told you I'm rooting for the entire hour. Let's let Eovaldi take a nap, cool all the way down before we have to see him again. I also think that realistically, if you're strategizing a series and the most likely loss you're going to face based on who the rotation or who the starter you're facing is Nathan Eovaldi, and you're already down 4-0, maybe it's a sacrifice game, and maybe Odorizzi's role is just go do what you can. We're going to save our bullpen bullets as much as we possibly can. Hopefully we get back in this. When that second grand slam happened, it was academic at that point. I know there were a couple of times we could have gotten a lot closer than the eventual 9-5 score. But if you knew you were going to lose the game anyway, which I'm not saying they were trying to lose or had given up, but you're saving your bullets for 3 and 4 at that point. And I think was more of Dusty and Brent Strom's thought process was, let's limit the damage to the bullpen, have a guy go as long as he can. We'll follow him up with Blake Taylor and then see if we can put anything together. And, you got what you got. I'm not happy with the split that we ended up with, but if you came out and said you're going to lose to their best starter, and now you've got to face a guy who has a career 7 ERA in the postseason, it's not the worst situation in the world.
Brian, can you confirm that when that solo home run went over the fence, that Jake Odorizzi thought to himself after the game that it was 9-5? Boy, what a way to make a living!
Who wouldn't, right?
I made Andy Tom Chesson laugh. That was good, right? You happy with that, Andy?
It's reminded me of the meme that's going around Facebook and Twitter right now about what is Jolene packing that she got away with stealing a man from Dolly.
Yeah. Let's talk a little Luis Garcia. Look, he was rough in Chicago. He was rough in obviously in game 2. And I will ultimately academically agree with Andy's assessment of, I had the Astros in 6, which meant probably losing Eovaldi's start. I don't like the fact that you've essentially ceded home field advantage, but it's going to take 1 win in the next 3 games to flip that back anyway. So, but it does sort of seem like that if you had to pick a loss, that probably would have been it. Do you think the knee injury is A, real, Brian, and B, were you surprised then that he stayed on the roster?
I assume it's real to some extent. I assume that it's not going well. This is probably a reason for it. Let's get someone else in there. Am I surprised that he's on the roster? I don't know, because they say it's not that big a deal and they think he can pitch again. Can he? I don't know. Right. Because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist. I don't know how to read a knee here. And so I don't really sort of know, other than, part of it is too, like if they take him off the roster now, he's out for the World Series as well.
Right.
So if their thought is he may not be able to go in the next 4 or 5 days, but he's our game 2 starter in the World Series, should we get there, that's a decision that they've got to weigh, and we'll see. The short answer is with a lot of the Astros pitching right now is we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I just wonder if a healthy Peter Solomon or Belak is better than a gimpy Luis Garcia. And that's, I guess, the question to be. Now, I guess if going in, he's got a sore knee, you can shoot the knee up or whatever it is to get rid of the pain preemptively. Let's look at what we have in front of us. So we have 3 straight games against the Red Sox. Urquidy goes today versus, like Andy pointed out, a guy with a 7 ERA this postseason. We've been knocked around by the Astros a bunch. What's that?
Career. He's
career.
I think,
Yeah.
5 so far. Yeah,
5 so far.
5.40 and 2 starts this postseason, but it's over 7 for his career.
Yeah, he had 1 bad start in the ALDS and 1 good start.
Yeah.
Okay. But he's a guy the Astros have hit before. I guess, what are we seeing? Like, if you're Dusty, from previous experience that all you have to do is get a playoff series guaranteed to go back home. And I'm referring to him losing the World Series to the Angels when all they had to do is get back to Anaheim. And then we saw it happen. Are we managing is he managing all 3 of these games, Andy, like it's an elimination game?
No. I think the strategy at this point is you've got to win 1 of the 3. And you're going to sell out to win 1 of the 3. 2 of the 3 would be better. 3 of the 3, sweep them in Boston. That'd be great. But I don't think there's a sense of urgency outside of it, just the normal playoff sense of urgency. You certainly don't want to get down. You certainly don't want to get down 3-1, which would, losing Monday and Tuesday's games would do. But we aren't in set the boat on fire mode yet. It literally is, you're going to have to play these games like you've got at least 3 more games to play, which you do. And so if you've got 3 more games to play, it's going to feel an awful lot like a baseball series during the regular season, just with a lot louder fans. So I don't think Dusty is going to pull out all the stops to get a win today. A lot has been made of the holes in the Astros rotation, and the Astros have a couple of really big question marks in the rotation right now. But the Red Sox don't have great starting pitching. We saw their best starter on Saturday, and he pitched okay. 5 innings, 3 runs is not a quality start.
Yeah, it's not even a quality start, right?
So it's not like we have this great mountain to climb like we'd be facing facing the Dodgers rotation, for instance, who has ace after ace after ace. This is a game. This is going to be a game and a series of games where whoever scores the most run wins. And that sounds stupid because every game is like that. But this is going to be a lot more 6 to 5 games, 7 to 8 games, than it is going to be 2 to 1 games. And the Astros are prepared to play in that kind of environment, and they're prepared to hit that well and score that many runs. Even with the shit show that was Saturday, they scored 5 runs and had an opportunity to score at least 4 more with just seeing eye single or Texas leaguer or blooper or any other cliche you want from Bull Durham. So I don't think things are
round ball with eyes.
Right. I just don't think things are quite as desperate as Saturday made them feel for a couple hours.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, so the Astros have scored 5 runs in every postseason game, 5 runs or more every postseason game. I'm penciling them to score at least 5 runs tonight, probably more. They are the best offense in baseball. They continue to prove in this playoffs they're the best offense in baseball. And, one of the reasons to have confidence in them is you expect they're going to score and continue to score runs. So, one way to beat the Red Sox, even with the holes in the pitching staff right now, is to just hit the heck out of the ball, score a bunch of runs, and outscore them. And, the worry is the Red Sox have a really good offense too, and they could do something similar, but the Astros have a better offense, and that's the big advantage they have walking into this game.
What about the pitching? I mean, is there a bullpen advantage for either one, or do you guys both think that the pitching staffs are just kind of a wash? Are they essentially the same staff? I mean, it seems like it seems like when Fromber's on, he's better than anything they have, and we've seen Urquidy be better than anything he have. I mean, is there an advantage one way or the other? Andy, do you see something?
Starting rotation wise, no. Both staffs are kind of I hope you can get 5 innings and hope your bullpen is going to fill in the middle. If you don't, our advantage is on the back end of the bullpen. Presley, Graveman, Stanek is better than anything the Red Sox can put in. Middle relief is middle relief. They're middle relievers for a reason. It's a crapshoot every time you put one of them out. I mean, literally, great. It's great that Blake Taylor pitched well on Saturday, but you could put him out in the exact same situation tomorrow and he could give up 5 runs. And that's the nature of why you're in middle relief to begin with. You're not good enough to be a starter and you're not good enough to be on the back end. You're a guy that's just there to try to get through some innings. Hopefully you get some key outs, but maybe you don't. The Red Sox staff bullpen is full of those guys. Maybe they're going to have good outings. Maybe they're not. But to say that there's some sort of dominant force coming out of that bullpen, I haven't seen it from them this year. And I don't think they have it magically waiting for us in Fenway for the next 3 games. Maybe they do. It's the nature of the playoffs. Literally anything can happen. But I think if you in a 7-game series, our offense still is better than their pitching.
Ryan, how do you map out the pitching then going forward? So I'm assuming that if we're up and Urquidy is beginning to face the lineup 3 times for the Red Sox, I don't imagine that it matters what the score is. You were going to see, if we're winning, we're going to see our best relievers in the order that we've grown accustomed. Do you start Greinke in game 4? Do you start Luis or Valdez on short rest? How would you map some of this out?
I mean, so I think the game 3 plan is what you said there, right? Is you try to get what you can out of Urquidy. Worth noting, Urquidy has a reverse split. Left-handers hit worse against him than right-handers in large part because one of his best pitches is his changeup, which fades away from lefties. And so that's notable because the Red Sox left-handers are at the beginning of the order. Schwarber and Devers. Schwarber's hit second, Devers hits 4th. So you may see him go, 20 batters, 24 batters, something like that, and get him into the 5th. Certainly what the Astros hope, again, is to score double-digit runs and be up so much that the bullpen doesn't matter, which is not completely
a bad idea.
And then if it's a close game, is to try to maximize the innings you get from, as Andy said, Stanek, Graveman, and Presley, who are, again, a better combination than the Red Sox have at the end of the game, a reversal from the last series. As to game 4, we'll see what they do. Again, Greinke also has reverse splits. He's also was really faded at the end of the season in large part because he stopped striking guys out. And so, on the other hand, he's a guy who can give you, 3-4 innings, which, could be real key in the middle game of a 3-game series. One question to think about with Fromber, right, is what's the best situation to use him potentially a 3rd time in the series?
Andy, do you have a thought on that? I mean,
Yeah.
what would you do regarding Fromber? And I mean, the fact is he didn't go deep in Friday night's game, which means theoretically you could bring him back a little sooner. Would you, or how would you map out 4 and 5?
Beyond the shattered finger notwithstanding, Fromber's our one starter who doesn't have health concerns, either from a history of injury or just every time they throw another inning, it's the most innings they've ever thrown in a season, which is kind of where we are with Garcia and Urquidy, and McCullers for that matter. So Fromber should be able to recover in time to pitch for a game 4, but I think it depends on the situation. If, let's say we win tonight and we win Tuesday night, I don't think you pitch Fromber until you get home and you let him get full rest. Because you can throw a bullpen game today. If we're down 1-3, then Fromber's absolutely pitching. So I don't think there's one size fits all for this situation. I could easily see a bullpen game for game 5. And that wouldn't surprise me. And I think we're actually a little bit better equipped for that than Boston is if they have to go to a bullpen game. I also think Greinke has one good game left in him. And I'm, I harken back, and I know he's a different guy from 2019, and he's 2 years older, and he faded badly at the end of the year. But
he faded so badly, he admitted to fading. Like, he didn't do any speak. He's like, I can't get anybody out right now. Like,
but he was absolute trash in the playoffs up until Game 7 of the World Series, and managed to get 7 innings. And there's still a lingering question about whether or not Hintz should have pulled him out. And that's a little nostalgia playing in my head. I know his underlying numbers don't support that performance anymore, but he's a veteran who can be efficient even when he doesn't have great stuff. Because let's be honest, he hasn't had great stuff in 5 years, maybe longer than that. So, if there's a guy you could hope just to pull a rabbit out of the hat and get through with chicanery, if he was left-handed, he would absolutely be the definition of a crafty left-hander at this point of his career. But he's right-handed and a little bit odd. So, I'm hoping for the best for him, and emotionally and sentimentally, I'm hoping that he pulls just one more time in the sunshine.
You hoping for for love of the game? Push the sun up one more time. And
that's right. Here's the mechanism for 9 innings.
Let's do it. Now, Brian, Andy had mentioned in a private message earlier that what he would do is actually would have promoted Belak, started him, had him hit Kike Hernandez, and enjoy the rest of the series. What do you think about such a strategy? We cannot get that guy out. Nobody can.
So I assume he will cool off at some time. I just hope it's sometime in the next 4 games. We know he's not this level of hitter throughout his career or even this season. Players are hot until they're not. When does he not get hot? Hopefully it's 8:00 tonight. But let's see. But I think the way you plan for it is that he is a good but not great hitter, because, well, that's what he's shown throughout his career. And I assume that he will return to that form at some time in the near future. So probably don't want to add the extra base runner there in front of Schwarber tonight.
Let me ask you this.
I'm sorry, but that is the crapshoot that is the playoffs, right?
Yes.
If he continues, this is let's just, bring it out to its logical conclusion here. Kike Hernandez continues to be hot. The Red Sox win the World Series. These are the Kike Hernandez playoffs. And he's going to get some monster contract, probably from the Yankees, because they love doing that to the Red Sox, to Brian's wife's chagrin. He's made his entire career based on 11 games.
He's basically Jackie Bradley Jr.
Yeah, now
from 2018.
Yeah, and his history, to Brian's point, absolutely, this is not the guy that we're seeing. But his socks are over his knees, so he's feeling it. He's feeling good, and he's seeing everything like a beach ball right now. And he makes that lineup that much better. If he was hitting 270 versus 5,000 or whatever he's hitting these days, they wouldn't be winning games. They wouldn't have advanced, frankly. But he won that series for them against Tampa Bay, and he has made the Astros have to adjust the way they pitch to that lineup because he's so hot. I hope, like Brian says, it goes away tonight.
I want to jump back to this series real quick to get to sort of like kind of take your temperature. But how are you guys? What is your surprise level? We'll start with Brian. That the Braves are up 2-0 on the Dodgers, because to me, I love it. I love everything about it. But it's shocking the fact that the Braves are playing like the team that's been in the playoffs for the last 10 years and have been winning divisions and championships. And the Dodgers look like the ones who are a little maybe too small for the moment.
Well, 2 points here. One is the playoffs are a crapshoot, and that's always been the case. The more we have that perspective, we are, as Andy said about Kike Hernandez, he isn't this good, but he is right now. And, if he continues that, it's an issue. And the Braves aren't better than the Dodgers, but they were by 1 run in each of the last 2 games. They've essentially won 2 coin flips. Now, second point. A year ago, the Braves were up 2-0 on the Dodgers. They got up 3-1 on the Dodgers in this exact same series. And I felt like every bit of thing I saw last night and this morning about that game, I saw one person mention that we have literally seen this movie before 1 year ago. This is the sequel. Obviously, if you're a Braves fan, you hope it goes better. And frankly, as an Astros fan, looking ahead to the next round of the playoffs, I think the Braves are not as good a team, so it'd be nicer to face them is in the World Series. And two, I've got a bunch of relatives in Atlanta, and I have some bets I want to make with them. So I look forward to that.
Andy, did you have any thoughts on that series?
I want to give another video series a little shout out, not that they need it, but SEC Shorts has a great episode this morning about Georgia and flirting with hope, because it's been 41 years and hope shows up and their fans are not having it because they don't want to have anything to do with hope. And that's where the Braves are right now. It hasn't been quite 41 years for them, but they're, in a really good position based on a couple of coin flips. And I feel dirty because I'm rooting for the Braves to win that series.
Right.
But the 80s me and the 90s me are very conflicted, because in the 80s I couldn't stand the Dodgers and they pretty much went away after 88. You didn't have to hate them anymore. And then the Braves took their place.
Yeah.
And Astros fans know the pain of every time you had to face the. And honestly, that's what 2004 was so great, because we finally got past the Braves. Even if we didn't get to the World Series, we finally beat the Braves. And
Yeah.
oh my God, they weren't even a good Braves team at that point, but we beat them. So that was something. It's like my parents got divorced and I don't like either one of them, but somebody's got to win the settlement. So I guess I'm going with the Braves, but it's just that they're just gross.
No, it's
gross.
Yeah. If you're listening or watching and you're an Astros fan in your 30s, everything you felt about the Braves in the 90s, we all felt growing up about the Dodgers in the 80s, Absolutely. Who were the dominant team in the National League West when we were in the National League West. And,
yeah.
I went to one of the games in 1986 where they won a late win against the Dodgers to make a big move in the decision. And one of the great joys of that as a 13-year-old going to the game is Tommy Lasorda came out to argue a call late, and we booed him like crazy. And it was awesome.
It's one of those interesting things since Mr. Lasorda has passed, that he has venerated, and I know he did a lot for baseball and certainly Blood Dodger Blue and all of that nonsense, but he was hated in Houston and he enjoyed being hated in Houston.
Yeah,
because it meant they were winning. So there was no love in Houston for Tommy Lasorda. I'm sure there's some Italian restaurant that he went to that they liked seeing him 10 games a year, but the rest of us, Tommy Lasorda could have died in 1981. It would have been fine with me.
So as Astros legend Reggie Jackson once said, they don't boo nobodies.
That's right. And the Braves thing's interesting. And I of course would like to exorcise some demons. We're also good friends with the show Mansplained Baseball. Everywhere they're all Braves fans. So it's like, I would love to see them be excited. I also don't want to have to listen to the national media talk about a revenge series for 7 games. Like, it could actually be a series where the topic of discussion is baseball. So circling back to our series as we wrap up, Andy, Brian, are y'all feeling? I think we all had Astros in 5 or 6. Have you guys moved toward this might not go our way? Or are you still pretty confident?
I'm probably, if the Astros win, it's going to be in 7. I think losing another starting pitcher is going to be a pretty tough hurdle to overcome. I don't think it's going to be a quick series for Boston either way, but I'm kind of at a coin flip right now about who's going to end up taking it. But I think it goes 7. So I think we come back to Houston. Good news. It's a matter, again, as we've said, of who's just going to start scoring the most runs, because that's neither of these pitching staffs are good. And that does mean we're going to have to figure out a way to get past Eovaldi for real the next time we see him. But I think we're equipped to do that if we do that back in Houston.
Brian?
I mean, the Astros have a better offense, barely, and a better fielding team, significantly. The issues have cropped up in pitching, right? Where we've got, one definitely injured starter and one we don't know what we're going to get out of Garcia, and we've got to turn to players much more down our rotation. So that's the biggest concern. I'm certainly more worried now than I was initially, but that's because things have changed in the personnel. Still, I think one scenario that I think is real likely, the Astros just hit the heck out of the ball up in Fenway Park and score a bunch of runs. So that's the biggest thing I'm hoping for. And I think I have a reasonable expectation it could happen.
You still have the Astros winning the series?
Yes.
Andy, and you're saying coin flip?
I'm coin flip right now.
All right. Well, that wraps us up for this episode. We'll be back hopefully tomorrow, but maybe not. Maybe we'll figure it all out. But we'll be back soon to keep breaking this thing down. And I do feel good about tonight. I still think I think Urquidy versus I don't even remember who he's starting. Rodriguez is
Eduardo Rodriguez. Yes.
Yeah, I still think that's a better matchup for us. I don't think this Fenway Magic thing is going to get to the Astros like it has to so many other teams. So that wraps us up. All right, guys, go Stros.
Go Stros.